The alarms screamed through the Ranger Command Center like wounded animals. Ollie's hands moved across the control console with surgical precision, each keystroke deliberate mechanical. The corruption threading through his veins pulsed in rhythm with the ancient technology responding to his touch. Cosmic gateway protocols scrolled across multiple displays, warnings flashing red against his unblinking stare. "Ollie, what are you doing?" Amelia's voice cut through the chaos, sharp with growing dread. He didn't turn. The entity wearing Ollie's face smiled, and it was wrong in ways that made the air itself recoil. Opening a door. The cosmic dino key blazed in his corrupted grip energy, spiraling outward in patterns that hurt to perceive. Reality screamed as he slammed it into the gateway interface. Ancient morphin grid connections ignited, not with their usual golden warmth, but with something cold, invasive, calculating. Zato lunged forward, but the gateway's activation threw him back. "Stop. You don't understand what you're—" "I understand perfectly." Ollie's voice carried harmonics that shouldn't emerge from a human throat. "The gateway shows truth. Let's see where truth takes you, Zenith Ranger." The portal tore open like a wound in space itself. Not the controlled, measured gateway the Rangers had trained with. This was violent, hungry, expanding with geometric fury. The morphin grid shrieked in protest as energies meant to connect were instead weaponized, twisted into something that devoured rather than united. Zato's feet skidded against the deck plating as gravitational forces reversed. His hands found a support beam, Knuckles' white suit materializing around him in defensive reflex. Red armor, edged with cosmic energy, the insignia of a Morphin Master, blazing across his chest. "Amelia, get everyone clear." His words came strained muscles burning as the pull intensified. She was already moving, grabbing Javi and pulling him toward the emergency bulkhead. Fern fired her blaster at the console, trying to disrupt the sequence. But the energy dissipated against shields Ollie had erected with casual efficiency. "This is for your own good," the corrupted Ranger said, and there was something almost gentle in that terrible voice. "You'll thank me when you see what lies beyond." The gateway's hunger crescendoed. Zito's grip failed. One moment he was there, armored and fighting with everything his enhanced physiology could muster. The next, the portal swallowed him whole, his scream cut off as reality folded around him like pages in a closing book. Then he was gone. The gateway didn't collapse. It pulsed once, twice, energy radiating outward in concentric spheres that passed through walls, through the station, through the fabric of local space. Where it touched, instruments went haywire. Navigation systems reported impossible readings. Morphin grid sensors registered signatures that shouldn't exist. Ollie stepped back from the console, that wrong smile still fixed on his features. Phase 1 complete. Amelia's fist connected with his jaw before anyone could stop her. The impact would have dropped a normal human. Ollie's head turned with the blow, then slowly rotated back, neck moving with disturbing fluidity. "Violent," he observed, "but understandable. You'll see soon enough." Billy's voice crackled through the comm system, urgent and analytical, even through obvious stress. "I'm reading massive energy displacement propagating through this sector. Whatever that gateway did, it left a scar, and it's spreading. Across the void in the black between stars, where light moved at its leisurely pace, and only the desperate or foolish ventured alone. Something else registered the disturbance. The Castle of Lions bridge erupted in urgent tones. Pidge's hands danced across her console, fingers flying as data streams cascaded faster than human eyes should track. Her specialized interface translated the cacophony into something approaching sense. but the readings still made her jaw tighten. "Shiro, I'm picking up a distress beacon." She adjusted her glasses, the motion automatic. "No, wait, it's not a beacon. It's a life sign, but the energy signature around it is completely foreign." The black paladin was already moving toward the command seat prosthetic hand, interfacing with the castle systems. Screens lit up around him, tactical overlays, painting the situation in harsh light. A single point of red tumbling through the void, surrounded by concentric rings of energy that pulsed like a living heartbeat. How far out? 0.7 light-years, drifting not under power. Pidge's expression shifted from analytical to concerned. Life signs are stable, but fading. Whatever's generating that energy field, it's keeping them alive barely. Keith was already at the pilot station, hands on controls. That signature, it's like nothing in our database. Which is exactly why we need to investigate. Shiro's voice carried command authority, but underneath ran genuine concern. Lance Hunk prepped the rescue pod. "Pidge, can you get a better read on what we're dealing with?" "Working on it." Her fingers never stopped moving. The energy signature has two distinct layers. One reads almost biological responsive, the other is more structured like a power grid. But the architecture is completely alien to anything Altine or Galra. Hunk checked weapon systems, a reflexive action born from too many rescues turning into ambushes. Could be a trap. Could be, Shiro acknowledged. But someone's dying out there. He turned to face his team, and in that moment, he wasn't just a commander, but the person who'd taught them all that saving lives came before strategic caution. We investigate. Carefully. The Castle of Lions shifted course, ancient Altian engines humming to life, with power that bent space rather than merely pushing through it. On the view screen, the red dot grew larger, resolution increasing as sensors compensated for distance and interference. Lance leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Is that armor?" The figure tumbling through space wore red plating edged with gold accents, design aesthetic completely unlike anything in Voltron's experience. Sleek where Galra armor was brutal, organic where their own suits were mechanical. The helmet's visor was dark, unreadable, but sensors confirmed life within. "Bringing them into Bay 3, Keith announced, maneuvering thrusters firing in precise bursts. 40 seconds to intercept." Pidge's console shrieked a warning. "Shiro, that energy field. It's not just around the survivor. There's a secondary wave expanding outward from a point of origin approximately 2 light-years distant. And it's accelerating." "What kind of wave?" She didn't answer. Immediately, fingers pulling up spectrographic analysis, running calculations that would have taken the castle's original Altian engineers hours. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, with the kind of awe usually reserved for discovering something that rewrote fundamental assumptions. "It's a dimensional scar. Something tore a hole between realities, and the energy release is still propagating. Whoever this is," she gestured at the armored figure now being drawn into the castle's gravitational envelope. They were at ground zero when it happened. The rescue bay doors cycled open. Atmospheric fields engaged, containing the void, while robotic arms gently guided the unconscious form to a landing platform. Medical scanners activated, automatically flooding the bay with diagnostic light. Shiro was moving before the all-clear sounded. "Corin, we need medical to Bay 3. Unknown species possibly injured, definitely unconscious." "On my way." The Altine's voice carried through the comm with characteristic urgency tempered by centuries of experience. Keith secured his station and followed Shiro toward the bay. Lance and Hunk exchanged glances, the kind of wordless communication that came from fighting side by side through impossible odds. "This feels wrong," Lance said. "Most of our rescues feel wrong at first," Hunk replied. But his hand didn't leave his beard. In Bay 3, the armored figure lay motionless on the platform. Up close, the suit's details became clear materials that seemed to shift between solid and energy states design elements that suggested both high technology and something almost ceremonial. The red was vivid aggressive, but the gold trim softened it into something that spoke of heroism rather than conquest. Shiro approached carefully prosthetic hand, ready to deploy its weaponry if necessary. "Can you hear me?" No response. The helmet's visor remained dark. Pidge's voice crackled through his headset. "Shiro, I'm analyzing that energy signature more closely. The biological component, it's not from the person. It's from the armor itself. It's alive, or at least semi-organic, and it's linked to them somehow. Symbiotic, maybe. I can't tell where the person ends and the suit begins. Can we remove it safely? I wouldn't recommend it. Not until we understand the connection better." Corin arrived in a flurry of activity, medical scanner already in hand. He waved it over the armored figure mustache, twitching as readings appeared. Fascinating, the armor is indeed interfacing directly with their nervous system. But it's not parasitic. More like a partnership. And underneath, he adjusted settings. Humanoid physiology, elevated stress markers, minor injuries but stable. They should regain consciousness soon. Good. Shiro stepped back, giving Corin room to work. When they wake up, we'll have questions, starting with what caused that dimensional scar. The figure's hand twitched. Then, with a sound like reality remembering something it had forgotten, the visor flickered to life. Dim light, the color of distant stars, illuminated from within. Zaito opened his eyes to a ceiling he didn't recognize, surrounded by faces he'd never seen, and for just a moment felt the weight of every impossible thing that had happened compress into a single thought: where am I? Back in the Ranger Command Center, Billy's fingers moved across holographic displays with practiced efficiency. The energy readings were stabilizing, but the implications weren't. "Amelia," he said quietly in the tone he used when the news was bad, but needed to be delivered with precision. "That gateway didn't just throw Zato somewhere in our universe. The dimensional variance is too extreme. He's gone somewhere else entirely. Another reality." She stood, rigid fists clenched so tight her knuckles had gone white. "Can we get him back? I don't know yet. But wherever he is..." Billy pulled up the energy scar readings, watching them propagate across his sensors like ripples from a stone thrown into still water. Something on the other side noticed, and they're coming to investigate. The scar pulsed once more, and something vast moved within it. The gateway's work wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. Zaito's first thought upon waking was that he'd been captured. The second was that his captors had extremely advanced medical technology. He lay on some kind of diagnostic platform, warm light washing over him from overhead panels that hummed with energy signatures he didn't recognize. Not Morphin Grid, something else entirely powerful, but fundamentally different in texture and resonance. His armor had partially depowered visor retracted, leaving his face exposed to recycled air that tasted faintly metallic. 5 figures stood around him in a loose semicircle. Defensive posture, but not aggressive. Curious. Concerned even. The one with the prosthetic arm stepped forward, moving with military precision, softened by genuine care. Dark hair, strong features, eyes that had seen too much but refused to harden completely. "Easy. You're safe. We found you drifting in space." Zato's hand went to his side, found his morpher still attached. Not prisoners then, or at least not hostile ones. He sat up slowly, systems recalibrating as his armor compensated for movement. Where am I? The Castle of Lions. The speaker Shiro, his instincts supplied reading leadership in every line of the man's bearing, gestured around the medical bay. You were caught in some kind of energy wave. We picked up your distress signature and brought you aboard. Memory crashed back. The gateway. Ollie's corrupted smile. The pull of dimensional forces too strong to resist. Zato's jaw tightened. How long was I unconscious? Approximately 45 minutes. A younger woman with brown hair and glasses consulted a tablet data reflecting in her lenses. Your armor kept you alive in hard vacuum. Impressive tech, I've never seen anything like it. Pidge is our tech specialist, Shiro explained. She's been monitoring your vitals. You're stable, but you took a beating from whatever threw you out here. Zato swung his legs off the platform boots, connecting with deck plating that felt solid real. Definitely not the Ranger Command Center. I need to contact my team. They're in danger, we all are. From what? Keith's voice carried suspicion wrapped in tactical assessment. The red and black armored pilot stood with hand near his weapon, not threatening but ready. That energy signature we detected wasn't natural. Someone attacked you. Not exactly. Zato stood armor fully re-engaging with a sound like reality remembering its purpose. The helmet reformed around his features, visor glowing with soft crimson light. One of our own was corrupted. He used ancient technology to open a gateway, forced me through it. I don't know where I am relative to home, but I know I shouldn't be here. Lance whistled low. Another dimension, that's a new one. We've seen weirder, Hunk muttered, though his expression suggested he was still calibrating his personal weird meter. Shiro held up a hand, quieting the commentary. Let's start with basics. I'm Takashi Shirogane, but everyone calls me Shiro. We pilot Voltron Defender of the universe. Or, he paused, sudden uncertainty crossing his features. Our universe, I guess? Zato. He didn't offer his full title. Zenith Ranger Morphin Master. Those meant nothing here. I'm part of a team called the Power Rangers. We protect our reality using something called the Morphin Grid. Pidge's eyes lit up with the particular gleam of someone encountering a fascinating puzzle. That biological energy signature integrated with your armor. That's this Morphin Grid, part of it. The grid connects all Rangers across time and space. It's... He searched for words that would translate across dimensional barriers, a living network of energy and willpower. When we morph, we become part of something larger than ourselves. Sounds familiar, Keith said with a glance at the others that carried shared experience. Before Zato could respond, alarm shrieked through the castle. Pidge was moving before the second alert finished, sounding fingers flying across her interface. Multiple contacts incoming fast. Configuration suggests pursuit craft. They followed the energy trail. On the main view screen, space twisted. Ships emerged from what looked like controlled tiers, in reality sleek vessels, painted in colors that seemed to shift between observation and memory. Red, black, gold, orange, a rainbow of aggressive intent. Those are Ranger ships. Zato's voice carried relief and worry in equal measure. My team, they tracked me through the dimensional scar. Are they friendly? Shiro's hand hovered over communication controls, ready to hail or raise shields depending on the answer. Yes, but they don't know you are. All they'll see is an unknown vessel holding their teammate. Lance groaned. So we rescued you, and now your friends are going to shoot us for kidnapping. Summarized crudely, Zato admitted, but accurate. Keith was already at tactical. 4 ships heavily armed. Energy signatures match the grid thing you mentioned. They're charging weapons. Open a channel, Shiro ordered. Let me talk to them. Shiro. Keith's warning came too late. The communication screen flared to life, showing a young woman in red armor, similar to Zato's, but with different design elements. Her visor had retracted, revealing features set with determination and barely controlled anger. Behind her, 3 other rangers crowded the frame, black, gold, orange suits, all focused with predatory intensity. Release Zato immediately. No preamble, no negotiation, pure command authority. You have 10 seconds to comply before we open fire. Wait! Zato pushed forward, moving into the camera's field of view. Amelia, stand down. They rescued me. I'm not a prisoner. The woman Amelia didn't lower her guard, but the weapons charge indicators on Pidge's screen plateaued instead of climbing. Zato! Are you hurt? Did they? I'm fine. Confused, displaced, dimensionally but unharmed. The Castle of Lions found me drifting after the gateway threw me out. These people saved my life. Another ranger, this one in gold, leaned into frame. The energy signatures don't match any known faction. How do we know this isn't some kind of trick Ollie was working with forces we don't understand? Because if we wanted him dead, he'd be dead. Keith's blunt assessment made Shiro wince, but it had the virtue of brutal honesty. We don't know you, you don't know us. But we pulled your friend out of hard vacuum because that's what we do. Amelia's eyes narrowed, studying Keith with the intensity of someone who'd learned to read threats in microseconds. Something in her posture shifted, still cautious but recalibrating from hostile to uncertain. Stand down, Rangers. Zato's voice carried authority earned through battles they couldn't see, sacrifices they hadn't witnessed. I need to debrief with them, understand where I am and how to get home. But these are allies, not enemies. You're sure? The ranger in black Javi, based on the nameplate visible on his suit, didn't sound convinced. I am. 10 seconds stretched. Then Amelia's shoulders dropped fractionally, weapons powering down on all 4 ships. Fine, but we're coming aboard. If there's even a chance you're being coerced, we're getting you out. Shiro nodded. Understood. Bay 3 can accommodate your vessels. Come armed if it makes you feel safer, but come peaceful. The channel closed. Lance let out a breath he'd been holding. Well, that went better than expected. It went exactly as expected, Keith countered. They're soldiers. We have their teammate. They were going to come in hot no matter what. And now they're coming in cautious instead of violent, Shiro said. I'll take that as a win. Pidge, monitor their approach. Hunk, Lance, you're with me to meet them. Keith. I know. Stay on the bridge ready to raise shields if this goes sideways. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Zato watched the exchange with growing understanding. Whatever this team was, they moved with the synchronized efficiency of people who'd trusted each other through hell. Not so different from rangers just wearing different armor. I should be there when they land, he said. Help smooth the introductions. Shiro nodded. Agreed. Pidge, you're coming too. If we're going to figure out how to get everyone home, we'll need to compare notes on your grid versus our technology. Already pulling up preliminary data. She was grinning, the expression of someone presented with a problem that would require brilliance to solve. This is going to be fascinating. Bay 3 had been designed to accommodate alien vessels of various configurations. The ranger ships settled onto landing platforms with minimal maneuvering. Magnetic clamps engaging with soft clanks that echoed through the cavernous space. Atmospheric shields shimmered, maintaining pressure while allowing physical passage. The ships were beautiful in their way, organic curves married to aggressive functionality painted in colors that seemed to pulse with internal energy. As Shiro watched access ramps extended and the Rangers emerged. They moved like a unit covering angles, watching for threats that might not exist but couldn't be risked. Amelia led red armor, catching the bay's overhead lights, morpher visible at her belt. The others flanked her in practiced formation, Javi covering left. Ayon taking right, Fern watching their six. Zaito stepped forward first, closing the distance between the two groups. Team. Amelia's helmet retracted, and for a moment her command presence cracked, revealing honest relief. You scared us. When that gateway swallowed you. She didn't finish, didn't need to. I know. I'm sorry. He gestured back at the Voltron team. But I landed in good hands. These are the paladins of Voltron. They defend their universe the way we defend ours. The other Rangers' helmets dematerialized, revealing faces young but hardened by experience. Ayon's gold-trimmed features carried the weight of centuries despite apparent youth. Javi's dark eyes tracked every detailed tactical assessment, never stopping. Fern's orange-accented armor framed a face that managed to look simultaneously relaxed and coiled for violence. Paladins, Javi repeated, like medieval knights. More like space knights, Lance offered with his characteristic grin, stepping forward with hand extended. Lance McLean, blue paladin, the charming one. Fern's expression suggested she was reserving judgment on that claim, but she shook his hand anyway. Fern, Orange Ranger, the one who actually gets things done. I like her already, Pidge muttered. Shiro handled the formal introductions with practiced diplomacy, years of coalition building showing through. Each paladin, each ranger, names and roles exchanged with the careful courtesy of potential allies who weren't quite sure of each other yet. Hunk, ever the social lubricant, broke some of the tension by asking about ranger ships. Those organic curves in your hull design, is that aesthetic or functional? Ayon's posture eased fractionally. Both. The ships interface with the morphin grid directly. They respond to our intentions as much as our controls. Like our lions, Hunk said, wonder creeping into his voice. They're semi-sentient, choose their pilots. We form Voltron when combined. Your robot form, Amelia's tactical mind was clearly working cataloging capabilities. We have something similar. Zords that combine into a Megazord. Pidge practically vibrated with excitement. Okay, we need to compare notes immediately. Semi-organic technology consciousness transfer combining mechanisms, the engineering implications alone, later, Shiro said gently. First, we need to understand the situation. Zato, you mentioned corruption. Someone on your team forced you through that gateway. The temperature in the bay seemed to drop. Zato's expression hardened behind his visor. Ollie, he is one of us. But something infected him, took control. He used the cosmic gateway, a piece of morphin master technology, to tear open reality and throw me through. I don't know why I don't know what he's planning. But whatever it is, it's bigger than just getting rid of me. Amelia's fists clenched. Billy's analyzing the energy residue from the gateway activation. He thinks whatever Ollie did left a permanent scar between dimensions. And it's growing. That matches what we detected. Pidge confirmed, pulling up a holographic display from her tablet. The dimensional scar appeared in miniature pulsing bands of energy expanding outward from a central point. The propagation rate is increasing. At current acceleration, it'll destabilize local space within 72 hours. Destabilize how? Keith's voice crackled through the comm from the bridge, still monitoring. Best case, random dimensional breaches, ships getting pulled into wrong realities. Worst case, Pidge's expression was grim. Full collapse of dimensional barriers in this sector, everything bleeding together. Silence hung heavy. Javi broke it, voice carefully controlled. So we fix the gateway, seal the breach. That's the mission. Except we don't know how, Amelia said quietly. Billy's brilliant, but this is Morphin master technology. Even Zato doesn't fully understand how it works, and he is a Morphin master. Was Zato corrected, pain threading through the word. The masters were captured. I'm the last one free, and I'm not even in the right dimension anymore. Shiro recognized that weight, the crushing responsibility of being the last hope. He'd worn it himself more times than he cared to count. Then we worked the problem together. You have knowledge of the Morphin grid, we have experience with dimensional anomalies and exotic energy. Between both teams, alarms shrieked. Keith's voice burst through, clipped and urgent. Contact bearing 27 Mark III. Big signature moving fast. It's not Ranger ships, this is something else. Everyone moved at once. Paladins toward their stations, Rangers toward their vessels, years of emergency response overriding the awkward newness of alliance. Pidge's fingers flew. Got it. Single vessel configuration unknown. Energy signature matches the dimensional scar frequency. Someone followed the trail from the other side. The bay's view screen flickered to life, showing space beyond the castle's hull. Reality twisted colors, bleeding wrong, and something emerged. The ship was nightmare and beauty combined. Organic curves wrapped around crystalline structures, hull plating that seemed to shift between matter and energy. It bristled with weapons that looked grown rather than built, and its energy signature radiated hunger. Squid Ink incorporated design philosophy, Javi breathed. That's a pursuit hunter. They build those things to track grid signatures and drain them dry. Who's Squid Ink Incorporated? Lance asked, already moving toward Blue Lion's hangar. War profiteers, Amelia spat. They sell to anyone with enough credits. If one of their ships is here, someone paid them to track Zato. The hunter vessel's weapons lit up, energy crackling between organic capacitors. Shiro's command voice cut through rising panic. Everyone to your vehicles now. Keith, get us positioned for defensive action. Pidge, scan that thing. I want to know what we're dealing with. On it. Zato's helmet reformed. That ship's designed to hunt Rangers specifically. Its weapons drain Morphin grid energy, feed it back into the ship's systems. The more we fight, the stronger it gets. Fantastic. Keith deadpanned. A vampire spaceship. Any weaknesses? Hunk was already in Yellow Lion's cockpit systems, powering up with familiar rumbles. The drain mechanism has to have a core processor. Destroy that, the ship's just a hull. Zato ran for his ship. But it'll be heavily shielded, protected by automated defenses. You'd need to distract it while someone gets inside. Shiro finished tactical mind, already 3 moves ahead. Voltron can handle the distraction. Can your team disable the core? Amelia was moving Rangers flowing toward their ships with the smooth efficiency of practiced teamwork. That's what we do. Then we have a plan. Shiro's prosthetic hand clenched. Voltron draws fire, keeps that thing busy. Rangers infiltrate and take out the core. Simple. Simple. Fern echoed, sarcasm dripping. Sure. The hunter ship fired. Particle beams raked across the castle's shields. Energy crackling as defensive systems absorbed and dispersed the impact. Warning lights bathed the bay in crimson urgency. Not so much a plan as suicide with extra steps, Lance called out, Blue Lion roaring to life beneath him. You have a better idea. Keith's Red Lion was already moving other lions, following in practiced formation. Not even a little bit. Then let's move. The lions launched 5 mechanical beasts flowing into space with predatory grace. Behind them, ranger ships followed smaller but no less deadly energy signatures, blazing as they tapped into the morphin grid. On the hunter ship's bridge, if it could be called that, something that had once been remotely organic studied the new targets with interest that bordered on appetite. The dimensional scar had drawn it here promise of grid energy, too concentrated to ignore. But these additional ships, these lions, they would make excellent test subjects. It fired again, weapons tracking with geometric precision, and the battle was joined. Space combat was always chaos, but this transcended normal parameters into something approaching performance art. The lions moved in concert, 5 points of a formation refined through countless battles. Red Lion dove low relative to the arbitrary plane everyone had unconsciously agreed constituted level drawing fire, while Blue Lion circled high rifle charged and tracking. Yellow and Green Lions provided suppressing fire energy beams, forcing the hunter ship to split its attention. And at the center, Black Lion coordinated Shiro's commands, flowing through the team comm with the calm assurance of someone who'd learned to lead in hell and refused to forget the lessons. Lance, target those weapon emplacements on the port side. Hunk, I need you ready to shield when they return fire. Keith. I know. Be the angry target everyone shoots at. You're so good at it, though. Lance's grin was audible. Red Lion screamed past the hunter ship close enough that its shield sparked against the vessel's own defensive fields. Particle beams tracked but couldn't quite lock on Keith's piloting, pushing the Lion through maneuvers that would have shredded any conventional craft. The Ranger ships moved differently. Where Voltron was synchronized precision, the Rangers fought with individual excellence that somehow cohered into effective teamwork. Javi's ship wove complex evasion patterns, drawing automated turret fire away from Amelia's approach vector. Fern and Ai flanked wide energy weapons, hammering at the hunter's shields, searching for weak points. And Zaito, he flew like someone who'd learned in another lifetime in skies that didn't exist anymore, with skills honed against enemies these dimensions had never seen. His red ship danced through incoming fire, each dodge minimal, each correction perfect, no wasted movement. That ship's shields are adaptive, Pidge reported from Green Lion scanners working overtime. Every hit makes them stronger against that specific frequency. We need to rotate our attack pattern constantly. Rangers, you copy that? Shiro's question went to the open channel they'd established, tenuous alliance solidified by immediate necessity. Copied. Amelia's voice remained steady despite her ship shuddering from a near miss. Switching to rotating frequency modulation on weapons. Ion Fern, follow my lead. The Ranger ship's energy signatures shifted weapons, cycling through different grid frequencies with each shot. The hunter ship's shields held, but stopped adapting, forced to maintain general protection rather than specialized defense. It's working. Hunk's enthusiasm carried through even as Yellow Lion took a direct hit, shields flaring but holding. Shields are stable but not strengthening. Keep it up. Keith brought Red Lion around for another pass, this time joined by Zato's ship. They moved in parallel, 2 red streaks against the black, firing in synchronized bursts that hammered the same section of shielding from different angles. Something cracked. Shield breach sector 4. Pidge's tactical display highlighted the vulnerability. It's regenerating, but we have maybe 20 seconds. Amelia, that's your window. Shiro's Black Lion shifted, drawing fire away from the Ranger leader's approach vector. We'll keep it distracted. Acknowledged. Rangers with me. The 4 Ranger ships converged, formation tightening into a spearhead with Amelia at the tip. Their combined weapons fire focused on the breach energy signatures, spiking as they poured everything into keeping the gap open. Then they were through. Inside the hunter ship's shields, space became a maze of automated defenses. Turrets swiveled, tracking the smaller ranger craft with mechanical precision. Energy nets deployed, trying to snare and drain. Split and search. Amelia's ship jinked left, avoiding a net by centimeters. The core will be centrally located, heavily armored. Look for energy concentration. Javi's scanners swept the hunter ship's hull. Got something midship port side. Massive energy signature, definitely grid adjacent. Could be the core. Could be a trap. Fern warned her ship, weaving through turret fire with casual expertise. Only one way to find out. Ayon's ship accelerated, gold armor gleaming as he dove toward the indicated location. Outside the shields, Voltron kept up the pressure. The hunter ship's weapons had shifted focus, trying to target the Rangers within its defensive perimeter. But the Lions refused to be ignored. Every time a weapon array turned inward, a Lion was their hammer blow, forcing it to defend instead of attack. This thing's smart. Keith grunted, Red Lion banking hard to avoid return fire. It's learning our patterns. Then we changed the pattern. Shiro's tactical display showed the battlefield in abstract geometry, vectors, and probabilities. A plan formed audacious and potentially stupid. Keith, Lance, how fast can you two form a sword? Brief pause while both pilots processed the question. 30 seconds if we're not being shot at, Lance estimated. 45 with hostiles. You have 1 minute. Pidge hunk, full suppression on my mark. We're going to give the Rangers the opening they need. Inside the hunter ship's shields, Javi's scans had proven accurate. The structure he'd identified pulsed with stolen grid energy, a crystalline core wrapped in organic armor that breathed with disturbing rhythm. That's it, Amelia confirmed. The drain mechanism. Destroy that, and this ship's dead in space. Weapons aren't penetrating the armor. Fern reported her ship's energy blasts splashing harmlessly against the core's protection. It's regenerating faster than we can damage it. Zato studied the structure, Morphin master knowledge, combining with desperate creativity. The armor's tied into the ship's systems. If we overload it, force it to absorb more energy than it can process, it'll crack open like an egg. Ayon's grin was audible. I like it. But we'd need a massive energy surge, something that reads as pure grid power. Or, Zato said slowly, we give it what it wants. Let it drain us, then reverse the flow at the last second. Force all that stolen energy back through its own mechanisms. Silence on the Ranger channel. That's insane, Javi finally said. Completely reckless, Fern agreed. I'm in, Amelia decided. Rangers on my mark, full power to weapons, but don't fire. Let your grid signatures flare. Make yourselves the biggest, brightest targets this thing's ever seen. The Ranger ships clustered around the core weapons, charged, but held. Their energy signatures spiked grid power, flowing through systems, calling to the hunter ship's drain mechanisms, like blood in water to a shark. The core responded. Tendrils of energy lanced out, latching onto the Ranger ships. Power began flowing, grid energy draining away, feeding back toward the crystalline structure. Warning lights flashed in all 4 cockpits as systems struggled against the pull. Now, Zato's command cracked through. Reverse flow, maximum output. 4 Rangers slammed controls, rerouting power, forcing their morphers to do something they were never designed for. Instead of drawing from the grid, they pushed into it, channeled every ounce of stored energy back through the tendrils that connected them to the core. The core convulsed. Energy feedback slammed through its systems, crystalline structure lighting up with power it couldn't contain, couldn't process, couldn't discharge fast enough. Cracks appeared, spreading like lightning through glass. Get clear. Amelia's ship broke free, Rangers scattering as the Corps' containment failed catastrophically. Outside, Shiro saw the hunter ship's shields flicker. Now Keith Lance sword formation. Red and blue lions merged mechanical transformation flowing with practiced grace. The Voltron-Sword materialized energy blade, extending from the combined form, cutting edge that could split asteroids. The hunter ship's core exploded. Shields collapsed. The sword descended. Keith and Lance drove the blade through the hunter ship's primary structure, bisecting it with one clean stroke. Secondary explosions rippled through the severed halve systems, failing power dying, the ship's hungry intelligence fading into nothing more than debris. The Ranger ships burst free of the dying vessel's shields, sparking but intact. "Sound off," Amelia commanded, voice tight with post-action adrenaline. Black Ranger intact. Gold Ranger, minor damage to port shields fully operational. Orange Ranger, I've had worse. Red Ranger. Zato's voice carried relief and exhaustion in equal measure. Still here. Shiro's channel open to all ships. Everyone okay? Confirmations came back, various levels of battered but functional. Lance's blue lion separated from Keith's red, both lions reforming into standard configuration. Okay, that was actually pretty cool. We should team up more often. Let's not make it a habit, Keith said, but there was approval in his tone. The hunter ship's remains tumbled through space energy signatures, fading to nothing. Whatever had piloted it, whatever intelligence had driven it to hunt Rangers across dimensional boundaries, was gone. Hunk's scanners swept the debris field. I'm not reading any life signs. Whatever was controlling that thing, it's not biological. Squid Ink Inc. uses automated systems, Hobby explained. Cheaper than pilots, more disposable. That was probably a hunter-killer drone sent to track and eliminate the grid signature that appeared in this dimension. Which means whoever corrupted your teammate knows Zito's here, Pidge said quietly. And they sent that thing to finish the job. Amelia's ship turned facing the Castle of Lions. We need to get back debriefed properly, if there are more of those ships coming. There will be. Zito's certainty was absolute. That was a scout attest. Whoever's behind this Ollie, or whatever's controlling him, they're just getting started. Shiro guided Black Lion back toward the castle's hangar. Then we'd better figure out how to send you home before the real assault begins. Everyone back to the castle. We have a lot to discuss. The combined fleet moved as one Lions and Ranger ships returning to Bay 3. Behind them, the hunter ship's debris began to drift apart, pulled by gravitational eddies and the slow entropy of space. But in the wreckage, something still pulsed. A recording device hardened against destruction, transmitting one final message before its power failed. The message traveled faster than light riding dimensional currents, seeking the intelligence that had deployed the hunter. And far away across barriers between realities, something received the transmission. Saw the Lions, saw the Rangers working together, and began to plan. The Castle of Lions war room had never held this many warriors at once. Rangers and paladins filled the circular chamber, standing around the central holographic display, where Pidge and Billy worked in synchronized silence. The two had fallen into collaboration with the ease of people who spoke the same language, not English, but the universal dialect of brilliant minds, confronting impossible problems. The dimensional scar's propagation follows a logarithmic curve, Billy said, fingers dancing through holographic equations that floated like frozen lightning. Which means the expansion rate isn't just increasing, it's accelerating exponentially. Pidge overlaid her own data. Altian readouts merging with morphin grid analytics in ways that shouldn't work, but somehow did. At current trajectory, We have 68 hours before critical mass. After that, dimensional barriers in this entire sector become permeable. Things will start bleeding through. Things? Lance asked from where he leaned against the wall, arms crossed. What kind of things? The kind that live between realities, Zato said quietly. Entities that exist in the spaces where dimensions touch. Most are harmless, curious. Some... He trailed off, memory darkening his features. Some are predators. Amelia stood with military posture, but her hand kept drifting to her morpher. Nervous energy barely contained. So we seal the breach. Reverse whatever Ollie did to open it. That's the problem. Billy pulled up a three-dimensional model of the dimensional scar bands of energy spiraling outward in fractal patterns. This wasn't just opened, it was torn. Like ripping fabric instead of cutting it. The cosmic gateway forced a connection between realities that shouldn't touch. And now both dimensions are trying to heal the wound by expanding into each other. Shiro studied the display with the focus he usually reserved for battle planning. Can we stitch it back together? Theoretically. Pidge pushed her glasses up, a gesture she made when thinking hard. We'd need to inject massive amounts of energy at precise frequencies to force the dimensional barriers to reconnect. But we're talking about power levels that would drain the castle's quintessence reserves completely. The morphin grid could provide the energy. Javi offered, though his expression suggested he already saw the flaw in that plan. Billy nodded grimly. It could. But grid energy is what's feeding the scar in the first place. Ollie used the gateway to weaponize our own power source. Adding more grid energy now would be like throwing gasoline on a fire. Silence fell heavy with implications. Hunk broke it with characteristic directness. Okay, so we can't use grid power and we don't have enough quintessence. What if we combined them, used both energy sources in some kind of hybrid configuration? Both Billy and Pidge turned to stare at him. That's... Billy started. Actually brilliant, Pidge finished. The energy signatures are different enough that they might not reinforce the scar. They'd interfere with each other, create a harmonic cancellation effect. Like noise-canceling headphones, but for dimensional tears. Ayan stepped closer to the display gold armor, reflecting the holographic light. You're talking about using two incompatible power sources simultaneously. The feedback alone could destroy whatever's generating it. Or it could work, Keith said from his position near the door, always ready to move if needed. We've done stupider things. Name one, Fern challenged. Last Tuesday. Several rangers laughed, despite the tension. The sound broke something in the room's atmosphere, shifted it from desperate to determined. Shiro's prosthetic hand interfaced with the display, pulling up the castle's power grid. If we're doing this, we need a clear plan. Billy Pidge, how would this hybrid energy injection work? The two scientists exchanged glances, that wordless communication of people solving problems in real time. We'd need a delivery system, Billy said, already working through calculations. Something that can channel both quintessence and grid energy simultaneously, withstand the feedback, and maintain stability long enough to seal the breach. The lions, Pidge said suddenly. They're already designed to channel quintessence. If we could modify them to also carry grid energy. The Zords could do the same in reverse, Amelia cut in, catching the thread. They're built to handle grid power. With the right modifications, they could carry quintessence. Zato was shaking his head. The energy requirements would be massive. We'd need every Zord, every lion, all channeling power at once. And even then... Alarms shrieked, Keith was moving before the second pulse. Please tell me that's not what I think it is. Pidge's hands flew across her console. Contact multiple signatures. They're not ships, they're something else. Energy constructs, maybe. Readings are all over the place. The main view screen flickered to life, showing space beyond the castle's hull. Things were emerging from the dimensional scar. They looked like someone had taken the concept of creature and filtered it through a nightmare built of mathematics and spite. Writhing masses of energy given semi-physical form, tentacles and teeth and geometries that hurt to perceive. Dozens of them pouring through the scar like water through a broken dam. Grid leeches, Javi breathed. Squid Ink Inc.'s latest product. They're not ships, they're living weapons designed to hunt and drain morphin grid energy. How many? Shiro's command voice cut through rising panic. 37 contacts and rising, Pidge reported. They're spreading out searching pattern. They've detected the grid signatures from the ranger ships. Amelia's morpher was already in her hand. They're after us? We need to... Wait. Billy's voice carried urgent realization. Look at their search pattern. They're not just hunting rangers, they're hunting anything with concentrated energy. The lions register as targets too. On screen, several grid leeches had shifted coarse tentacles, reaching toward the castle with disturbing intent. Lance pushed off the wall. So we've got evil space jellyfish that want to eat us and our lions. Fantastic. What's the plan? Shiro was already moving toward the bridge. We can't let them drain us. If they get strong enough, they'll tear the dimensional barriers apart faster than we can seal them, Billy finished. This isn't random. Someone sent these things to prevent us from closing the breach. Ollie, Zato said, fists clenched. Or whatever's controlling him. This is a distraction keeping us busy while the scar expands. Keith's voice crackled through the comm. They're getting closer. We need to make a call, fight, or run. The question hung in the air for exactly 2 seconds. We fight. Amelia and Shiro spoke simultaneously, then exchanged brief nods of mutual understanding. But we fight smart, Amelia continued. These things drain energy the more we engage. Standard combat will just make them stronger. Pidge was already running calculations. Their drain mechanism has to have a limit. If we can overload them, force them to absorb more than they can process. They'll pop like balloons, Fern said with grim satisfaction. I like it. We need bait, Javi said, tactical mind working the problem. Something to draw them in, make them think they're getting an easy meal. Hunk raised his hand. I volunteer Yellow Lion. She's got the strongest shields. I can take the hits while you guys set up the overload. You can't do this alone, Shiro said. We all go. Voltron formation, maximum power output. We make ourselves the biggest, brightest target they can't resist. Billy nodded slowly. While Voltron draws them in, the Rangers set up a grid energy net. When enough leeches cluster around you, we trigger it, hit them with more grid power than their systems can handle. Cooking them with their own favorite food, Lance said. I'd feel bad if they weren't trying to eat us. Ayan was already heading for his ship. How long do you need to set up the net? 5 minutes, Billy estimated. Maybe 7 if we want it to actually work, instead of just looking impressive. You've got 3, Keith called from the bridge. They're accelerating. Impact in 4 minutes. Everyone moved. The transformation of the castle's hangar into a combat staging area took less than 90 seconds. Years of emergency protocols drilled and refined through countless battles made the chaos look almost choreographed. Lions roared to life, quintessence flowing through their systems like lifeblood. The ranger ships activated in parallel, grid energy signatures flaring as morphers synchronized with vessel systems. Formation pattern Delta. Shiro commanded Black Lion, already moving toward the launch bay. We form Voltron in open space. Give them a target they can't ignore. The lions launched in sequence, red, blue, yellow, green. Black 5 streaks of color against the void. Space opened before them, and in the distance, the grid leeches swarmed. Up close, they were worse than the view screen had suggested. Masses of corrupted energy held together by something that might have been will or might have been hunger. Tentacles lashed out, tasting space, searching for the concentrated power that would feed their endless appetite. Form Voltron. Shiro's command carried the weight of 1,000 battles. The lions moved as 1 year of practice, making the combination almost instinctive. Red and green formed the arms, blue and yellow the legs, black the core and head. Metal flowed like liquid connections that defied physics, locking into place with the certainty of cosmic rightness. Voltron stood in the void, a titan of metal and light and will made manifest. The grid leeches noticed. As one, the swarm turned tentacles, extending geometries, shifting to optimize for hunting. They moved faster than something that size should move, drawn by Voltron's massive quintessence signature, like moths to a flame that would consume them. Here they come, Keith said, Red Lion's controls responding to his thoughts as much as his hands. Shiro there. I see them. Hold formation, maximize power output. We need to look like the best meal they've ever seen. Quintessence flared Voltron's energy signature, blazing across every sensor in the sector. To the grid leeches, it must have looked like a feast laid out just for them. They accelerated. Rangers, you in position. Shiro's voice carried across the open channel. From their ships, spread in a wide perimeter around the combat zone, the Rangers responded. Black Ranger position Alpha ready, Javi confirmed. Gold Ranger position Beta, all systems green, Aiyon added. Orange Ranger Gamma locked and loaded, Fern reported. Red Ranger position Delta. Amelia's voice carried focused intensity. Billy, how's the net on the castle's bridge? Billy worked frantically, coordinating power flows from the Ranger ships through a hastily constructed relay system. 60% charged. I need more time. You're about to get company instead, Pidge warned. First wave hitting Voltron in 10 seconds. The grid leeches struck. Tentacles lashed out, wrapping around Voltron's arms, legs, torso. Where they touched, energy began to flow, quintessence drawn out like blood from a wound. Warning lights flashed across all 5 Lions' cockpits as power levels started dropping. Shields holding, Hunk reported, though strain edged his voice. But they're drinking deep. This isn't sustainable. Shiro felt it through Black Lion's connection, the pull of energy being stolen, fed into creatures that had no right to exist. Billy status? 75%. I need 30 more seconds. More leeches arrived, drawn by the feeding frenzy. They clustered around Voltron like parasites, tentacles finding purchase, draining harder. Power at 60% and dropping, Pidge said, fingers flying across her interface. They're adapting, learning to pull faster. Keith's jaw clenched. Shiro, hold. Power at 50%. Hold. The leeches pulsed, swelling as they gorged on stolen quintessence. Their form solidified, became more real, more dangerous. Some began to split reproduction through consumption, one leech becoming 2. 40% power, Lance said. This is getting dicey. Billy. Amelia's voice cracked like a whip. 90% almost there. A grid leech the size of a small ship latched onto Voltron's head, tentacles wrapping around Black Lion's position. Energy drain spiked, warning alarms screaming as systems struggled under the assault. 95. Voltron's right arm began to separate Red Lion's connection, destabilizing under the drain. Can't hold, Keith gasped. 98. The swarm had grown. What started as 37 contacts had multiplied to over 60, each leech fat, with stolen power hungry for more. Now! Billy's shout carried triumph and desperation in equal measure. The grid energy net activated. Power erupted from all 4 Ranger ships simultaneously, beams of concentrated morphin grid energy that wove together in complex patterns. The net formed in seconds, a lattice of power that wrapped around the leech swarm containing them, forcing them closer together. And then it began to feed them. Not the carefully measured drain they'd been performing on Voltron. This was a flood, a tidal wave of grid energy forced directly into their systems, faster than they could possibly absorb. The first leech to rupture exploded in a burst of light and impossible mathematics. Then another, and another. The swarm convulsed, trapped in the net, unable to escape force-fed power until their forms couldn't hold integrity. Some tried to purge the excess energy, but the net prevented it, held everything in building pressure like a dam about to break. They ruptured in chain reaction, each explosion triggering the next. Energy cascaded through the swarm, beautiful and terrible grid power, and corrupted quintessence mixing in combinations that shouldn't exist. When it ended, the space where the grid leeches had swarmed was empty, except for fading sparkles of dissipating energy. Voltron separated lions, reforming into individual units. In each cockpit, paladins gasped for breath, adrenaline, and relief, making their hands shake. "Sound off," Shiro commanded, voice rough. "Red Lion operational, mostly. Blue Lion, I've had better days, but I'm good. Yellow Lion shields regenerating, all systems green. Green Lion running diagnostics, but nothing critical." The Ranger ships moved closer, formations loosening as combat tension bled away. "That was too close," Amelia said quietly. "If Billy hadn't finished the net when he did. But I did." Billy's voice carried exhaustion, though I wouldn't want to try that again. The feedback from mixing grid energy and quintessence in combat conditions was intense. Javi's ship pulled alongside Red Lion. Intense meaning almost exploded, or intense meaning just really uncomfortable. Yes. Fern laughed, slightly manic edge to it. Well, that's one way to solve a grid leech infestation. Explode them with their own favorite snack. The real question, Pidge said scanners active again, is whether that was all of them or just the first wave. Her sensors answered before anyone could respond. The dimensional scar pulsed, once, twice, and more contacts began emerging. "You have got to be kidding me," Lance groaned. The new contacts weren't grid leeches. They were ships, dozens of them, sleek hunters like the one they destroyed earlier. Squid Ink incorporated design philosophy written in every aggressive curve, weapons already charging. "They're blocking escape routes," Keith observed tactical assessment cutting through fatigue. "Setting up a perimeter. This isn't random, it's coordinated." Ion's voice carried grim recognition. "That's a kill box. They're setting up to trap us, drain us dry, then move in for cleanup." Shiro's mind raced through options, strategies, escape vectors. They were low on power, the Rangers exhausted from setting up the net and now facing fresh enemies with tactical advantage. "Castle of Lions," he transmitted. "Corin, what's our status?" The Altean's voice crackled back, strained. "Quintessence reserves at 42%. Shields operational, but I wouldn't want to test them against that many ships. And Shiro the dimensional scar just expanded again. Whatever they're doing, it's working. We're running out of time. Amelia moved her ship into formation with the lions. We can't run. Even if we broke through their perimeter, they'd just follow. And we'd be leading them away from the breach we need to seal. So we fight, Zydo said. Outnumbered low on power against an enemy that's had time to prepare while we were dealing with the leeches. When you put it that way, it sounds bad, Hunk muttered. Because it is bad, Hobby countered. But we've fought through worse odds before. Have we, though? Fern asked. I feel like this might be a new record for situations most likely to kill us. Keith's laugh was sharp. You should see our highlight reel. The hunter ships completed their perimeter, a cage of weapons and hostile intent. On the view screen, Pidge counted 43 vessels, each one capable of the kind of damage they'd barely survived before. And behind them, the dimensional scar continued to pulse, growing, spreading, tearing reality apart, one fragment at a time. We're not going to win a straight fight, Shiro said. Not defeat, but tactical reality. We need to change the game. Billy's voice cut in, carrying the tone of someone who'd just realized something important. The ships are automated, right? Like the last one. Squid Inc. Incorporated. Standard practice, Amelia confirmed. Cheaper than crews, more expendable. Then they're all running the same base programming, probably networked to share targeting data and coordinate attacks. Billy paused. Which means they have a central control node. Take that out and the whole fleet goes dark. Pidge was already scanning. Looking for the control node now, got it. Flagship at the perimeter's edge, energy signature 20% higher than the others. That's our target. One problem, Keith said. It's at the far end of their formation. We'd have to fight through 20 ships just to reach it. Or, Lance said slowly, we make them move it to us. Shiro turned in his cockpit even though he couldn't see Lance's blue lion. Explain. These things are automated, programmed to hunt high-value targets, right? So we give them a target they can't resist. Something so valuable, so tactically important, that their programming forces them to commit everything to capturing it. Understanding dawned across multiple faces simultaneously. The castle? Amelia breathed. We use the castle as bait, Lance continued. Draw the flagship in close, then hit it with everything we have, while the other ships are repositioning. Corin's voice squawked through the comm. I must protest this plan on the grounds that it involves my castle being shot at. Your castle with shields and defensive weapons, Pidge countered, versus us in lions and ranger ships that are already running on fumes. The castle can take hits we can't. Silence while everyone processed the plan's terrible logic. It could work, Zydo said finally. The flagship would have to get close to coordinate a proper siege. That's our window. Shiro made the call. Corin, power up defensive systems. Make the castle look like it's preparing to retreat. That should trigger their pursuit protocols. Everyone else formation on me. When that flagship commits, we hit it with everything we have left. And if this doesn't work? Ayan asked. Keith's response was immediate. Then we die fighting instead of dying running. I'll take those odds. Inspiring, Fern said dryly. Really got the morale pumping, but she moved into formation anyway. They all did. The Castle of Lions powered up energy signature flaring as Corin brought systems online. To the hunter ship's sensors, it must have looked like a high-value target preparing to flee. The perimeter contracted. Ships moved with geometric precision, closing the cage, cutting off escape vectors. And at the back of the formation, The flagship accelerated, moving to direct the siege personally. "It's working," Pidge whispered. "They're repositioning to focus on the castle." The flagship pushed forward, weapons charging coordination signals, flooding the network as it prepared to command the assault. "Wait for it," Shiro commanded. "Let it get closer." The flagship moved into optimal firing position, its weapons array lighting up like a constellation of hostile stars. Now. Voltron reformed in an instant, lions combining with the fluid grace of long practice. The ranger ships moved as one, energy signatures spiking as they channeled the last of their grid power into weapons. They hit the flagship from 5 angles simultaneously. Voltron's sword manifested energy blade, cutting through shields that hadn't been raised for close combat. Ranger weapons hammered weak points, grid energy, finding gaps in armor, exploiting vulnerabilities that defensive programming hadn't anticipated. The flagship's central processing core, the brain controlling the entire hunter fleet, ruptured under the combined assault. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then, as 143 hunter ships went dark, weapons powered down engines cut coordination signals, dying into static. They hung in space like broken puppet strings, cut threat neutralized. "It worked," Hunk said, disbelief coloring his voice. "It actually worked." "Don't sound so surprised," Lance replied, though his own tone suggested he was equally shocked. Amelia's ship moved through the now harmless fleet, scanning for any sign of reactivation. "They're completely offline. Whatever you hit, it killed the network." "Which buys us time," Billy said, "but doesn't solve the main problem. The dimensional scar is still expanding. We've dealt with the distraction, now we need to seal the breach." Shiro brought Voltron around, facing the scar directly. It had grown while they fought, bands of energy spreading like infection through space. Through the tear, he could see colors that shouldn't exist, geometries that made his eyes hurt. "Then we finish this," he said. "Billy, Pidge, start prepping the hybrid energy system. We're going to seal this thing before anything else comes through." "On it, Fatir," both scientists responded. But as the combined fleet regrouped around the castle, as plans formed and preparations began, none of them noticed the small signal emanating from the flagship's wreckage. A transmission encoded and compressed, riding dimensional currents back through the scar, arriving at its destination in a reality not their own, where something vast and terrible received the message, learned of the lions and rangers working together, and smiled. The castle's war room had transformed into something between a laboratory and a command center. Holographic displays floated everywhere, showing calculations, energy flow diagrams, 3-dimensional models of the dimensional scar. Billy and Pidge had taken over the main console, working with the synchronized intensity of people racing against countdown clocks only they could see. Around them, rangers and paladins watched, waiting for the verdict. "The hybrid system is theoretically sound," Billy said, highlighting a complex diagram. "We channel quintessence through the lion's natural conduits, grid energy through the Zord's morphing field generators. The two energies meet at the breach point, create harmonic interference, which forces the dimensional barriers to reconnect instead of continuing to tear." Pidge finished. "Like welding, but with reality." Zaido studied the diagram with a Morphin master's understanding of grid mechanics. "The power requirements are enormous. Every lion, every Zord channeling maximum output simultaneously, and if the timing is off by even microseconds, the energies won't interfere correctly," Amelia said. "They'll reinforce instead of cancel, make the scar worse." "Much worse," Billy confirmed grimly. "We're talking about potential reality cascade this dimension and ours bleeding together, borders collapsing across light years instead of just this sector." Lance raised his hand. Question: how do we make sure the timing is perfect when we're talking about two completely different power systems that have never worked together before? Silence. Then Hunk spoke up, tentative but thoughtful. What if we combined first Voltron and the Megazord, I mean? Not just fighting side by side, but actually linked together. If we're channeling the energies through a single unified system, the timing becomes automatic, Pidge said, eyes widening. The combined form would balance both power sources, naturally optimize the output in real time. Javi frowned. That's never been done. Lions and Zords don't use compatible connection systems. The integration alone could work, Billy interrupted, already running calculations. If we modify the quintessence flow regulators to accept grid energy signatures and recalibrate the Zord's morphing field harmonics to tolerate quintessence, his fingers flew across holographic keyboards. It would be unstable, probably only hold together for a few minutes before the systems reject each other. But a few minutes might be all we need. Ayong crossed his arms. You're talking about jury-rigging two completely different technologies into a combined form that's never been tested, channeling incompatible energies through it and using that to perform precision dimensional surgery. The failure points are innumerable. But it could work, Keith said. Not a question. Billy and Pidge exchanged glances. It could work, they confirmed in unison. Shiro stood, prosthetic hand clenched. Then we do it. Billy, Pidge, how long to make the necessary modifications? 2 hours, Pidge estimated. Maybe 3 if we want to actually test anything first. You have 90 minutes, Amelia said, checking her morpher's readout. The scar's expansion is accelerating. Any longer, and we won't be able to seal it even with unlimited power. 90 minutes it is, Billy said, already moving toward the hangar. I'll need access to the Zord's morphing field generators. And I need to reconfigure Lion quintessence systems, Pidge added. This is going to be delicate work. Then get to it. Shiro's command voice carried urgency wrapped in confidence. Everyone else prep for deployment. This is going to be our only shot. Make sure you're ready. The room emptied in organized chaos, people moving with purpose toward their tasks. Only Zato remained standing before the holographic display of the dimensional scar, watching it pulse and grow. Shiro paused on his way out. You okay? Thinking about Ollie, Zato said quietly. Whatever's controlling him, it planned this perfectly. Threw me through the scar to trigger all these events, knowing we'd have to focus on sealing the breach while he or it works toward the real goal. Which is, I don't know, but I don't think any of this is random. He gestured at the display. The timing, the hunter ships, the grid leeches, all perfectly coordinated to keep us busy. We're being maneuvered, Shiro. The question is toward what? Shiro had learned to trust strategic instincts, both his own and others. Then we stay alert. Seal the breach, but watch for the real attack. And if it comes during the sealing, when we're most vulnerable, all our power committed to closing the scar. The question hung between them, unanswerable. Then we adapt, Shiro said finally. It's what we do. Zato managed a slight smile. Rangers and paladins were not so different. No, Shiro agreed. We're not. They stood together, watching the dimensional scar pulse, both feeling the weight of what was coming. Behind them, neither noticed the shadow that flickered at the edge of the holographic display, lasting only a fraction of a second, but carrying with it the taste of corruption, ambition, and something that might have been laughter. The real game was about to begin. 90 minutes had never felt so short. The castle's hangar had become a maze of cables, energy conduits, and 2 teams of engineers working miracles with insufficient time and impossible requirements. Pidge hung suspended in Yellow Lion's cockpit, rewiring quintessence flow regulators, while Hunk fed her tools and words of encouragement. Across the bay, Billy worked inside the Gold Zord's morphing chamber, fingers steady despite the ticking clock and catastrophic consequences of failure. "This connection shouldn't work," Pidge muttered, splicing Altine technology to morphin grid architecture in ways that violated several laws of physics. "The energy signatures are fundamentally incompatible." "Then we'll make them compatible," Billy responded through the open comm channel, his own hands deep in similar impossible surgery. "We're not rewriting physics, we're just suggesting alternative interpretations." Javi, assisting Billy, raised an eyebrow. "Is that what we're calling it? Would you prefer desperately hoping the universe doesn't notice we're breaking its rules?" "Both work." In the war room, Shiro studied the dimensional scar's latest readings with growing unease. The tear had expanded another 12% in the last hour. Through the rift, he could see fragments of another reality, bleeding through colors that shouldn't exist, structures that defied geometry, and something that might have been movement in the depths. "Whatever's on the other side is getting curious," Keith observed, standing beside him. "Look at the pattern. Those aren't random fluctuations. Something's testing the barrier." Amelia joined them, morphed, but with helmet-retracted red armor gleaming under the war room's lights. "How long until we're ready?" "Pidge and Billy estimate 15 more minutes for the modifications." Shiro pulled up a tactical overlay. "Then we'll need at least 5 minutes to form Voltron and the Megazord, another 2 to establish the connection between them. 22 minutes total." Zaito calculated his own visor, reflecting the scar's pulsing energy. "The breach will be 67% larger by then. That's assuming nothing else comes through to complicate matters." As if summoned by the words, alarms shrieked. Lance's voice burst through the comm from Blue Lion's cockpit. "We've got incoming. Something big just started pushing through the scar, and I do mean big." The view screen shifted, showing the dimensional tear in horrifying detail. Something was forcing its way through from the other side, pressing against the weakened barriers between realities. Energy crackled around a massive form, details obscured by the distortion, but size unmistakable. "Readings are off the charts," Corin reported from the bridge mustache, quivering with alarm. "Whatever that is, it's larger than the castle, and it's generating enough energy to expand the scar just by existing near it." Fern appeared on another screen, already in her ship. "Please tell me we have a plan for giant monster forcing its way through dimensional barriers." "Working on it," Keith said, though his expression suggested the plan was currently just panic and improvise. The creature, because it was definitely alive sensors, confirmed that much pushed harder. Reality screamed the scar, tearing wider to accommodate its bulk. A limb emerged, first crystalline and segmented, followed by another, then a third. The thing was pulling itself through like a spider, climbing from a drain. "That's a grid leech," Billy said, voice tight with recognition. "But it's been modified, enhanced somehow. Squid Inc. Incorporated must have merged dozens of them into a single entity." "A super leech," Ayan said flatly, "because regular leeches weren't bad enough." The creature hauled more of itself through the breach. Its body was a nightmare of crystalline segments and energy-draining tentacles, each appendage the size of a lion. Where it touched the dimensional barriers, power flowed, feeding it, making it stronger. "It's using the scar itself as a power source." Pidge realized, temporarily abandoning her modifications to study the readings. "Every second it stays there, it's drinking from both dimensions simultaneously. If we don't stop it, it'll become too powerful to kill," Shiro finished. and it'll tear the scar wide open in the process. Keith was already moving. Then we hit it now before it fully emerges. With what? Amelia challenged. We're not ready to combine yet. Individual lions and Zords won't have the firepower to take that thing down. So we buy time. Shiro's command presence filled the room. Keep it busy, slow its emergence, give Pidge and Billy the minutes they need to finish. Then we form up and hit it with everything. Zyto's helmet reformed around his features. A holding action against a creature specifically designed to drain our power sources. This keeps getting better. Look at it this way. Lance called out Blue Lion on already launching. At least we're consistent. If we're going to do something stupid and dangerous, might as well do it with style. I miss the days when style meant not dying, Fern muttered, but her ship was moving too, weapons charging. The combined fleet launched 5 lions and 4 ranger ships against a monster that was still forcing its way through dimensional barriers. It was the kind of tactical mismatch that should have resulted in immediate retreat. Instead, they attacked. The super leech's emergence had stalled at roughly 70%. Its forward segments were fully through massive crystalline body glittering with stolen energy, but its rear portions still remained on the other side of the breach, which meant it was anchored, unable to pursue, limited in its movement. Small advantages, but they were all the combined fleet had. Spread out! Shiro commanded Black Lion banking left as tentacles lashed through the space he'd occupied a second before. Don't let it focus fire, keep moving. Keep it distracted. Red Lion dove low again, relative to arbitrary spatial orientation, Keith's piloting pushing the lion through gaps that shouldn't exist. His Bayard manifested as a blade cutting through smaller tentacles that reached for him, each severed piece dissolving into sparks of grid energy. It's regenerating, he reported. Fast, faster than we can damage it. Then we damage it faster. Javi shot back his Black Ranger ship, unleashing a barrage of grid-enhanced weapons fire. The beam struck the super leech's crystalline armor, cracking segments, but new crystal growth immediately filled the gaps. Ayasunan and Fern worked in tandem, their ships executing a complicated weave pattern that drew tentacles into crossing paths, making the creature attack itself. It was working barely, but every second brought the super leech closer to full emergence. Pidge Billy. Amelia called her Red Ranger ship, dodging 3 tentacles simultaneously. Please tell me you're almost done. Define almost, Pidge responded, her voice strained with concentration. I'm literally holding 2 incompatible power conduits together with one hand while trying to weld them with the other. I've got 5 more connections to make, Billy added. Maybe 6. Possibly 7 if this regulation matrix doesn't stabilize. A tentacle wrapped around Yellow Lion energy drain activating immediately. Warning klaxons screamed as power levels plummeted. Little help, Hunk called, shields buckling. Green Lion was there in seconds, Pidge's remote piloting keeping her lion active even while she worked in the hangar. Precision beams cut through the tentacle, freeing Yellow Lion, but drawing the super leech's attention. Multiple tentacles lashed out at Green Lion. Blue Lion intercepted rifle blazing, each shot perfectly placed to sever tentacles before they connected. Lance's sharp shooting had never been more vital or more desperate. This isn't sustainable, Keith growled. Red Lion's energy reserves dropping toward critical levels. That thing's draining us faster than we can regenerate. Zato's ship spiraled through a forest of reaching tentacles, weapons firing in controlled bursts. The modifications, how much longer? Billy's hands moved in blur, muscle memory, and genius, combining to work miracles. 3 minutes. Maybe 2 if I skip the safety checks. Skip them, Amelia ordered. We don't have 3 minutes. The super leech surged, pulling more of its bulk through the dimensional scar. The tear expanded reality, screaming as it accommodated the creature's impossible mass. 80% emerged now, maybe more. And with the increased emergence came increased reach. Tentacles that had been limited in range now extended farther, moved faster, coordinated better. It's adapting to our attack patterns. Aion warned his ship, narrowly avoiding a tentacle that had anticipated his evasion maneuver. Learning how we fight. Shiro's tactical mind raced through options, finding nothing good. They couldn't retreat, the creature would finish emerging unopposed. They couldn't maintain the holding action much longer. Power reserves were critical across the board, and they couldn't win, not like this, not individually, which left exactly one option. Pidge Billy's status right now. 90 seconds. They responded in unison. Everyone pull back to rally point Epsilon, Shiro commanded. We're forming up. The modifications aren't complete, Billy protested. They're complete enough. We form Voltron and Megazord now, or we don't form them at all. Keith didn't argue, just turned Red Lion toward the designated coordinates. The others followed Rangers and Paladins alike, abandoning the holding action for the desperate gamble of premature combination. The super leech surged again, 90% emerged tentacles reaching for the retreating fleet. Form Voltron. Shiro's command carried the weight of absolute necessity. The lions came together in practice sequence, metal-flowing connections, locking. Red and green to arms, blue and yellow to legs, black to core and head. The combination should have been smooth automatic. Instead, systems shrieked warnings. The modified quintessence regulators fought against normal operation, trying to accommodate grid energy that wasn't there yet, causing feedback loops and power fluctuations. Voltron's unstable time. Pidge reported, fighting her controls as the combined form wavered. The modifications are interfering with normal quintessence flow. Simultaneously, the Ranger ships moved into Megazord formation. 4 vessels combining morphing field generators, activating grid energy, channeling through systems designed for exactly this purpose. But Billy's modifications created the same problem systems, trying to handle quintessence before it was present, causing harmonic interference in the grid connections. Megazord formation is degraded, Hobby called out. Coherence at 60% and dropping. Both giant forms stood in space, magnificent and terrible, but flickering like badly tuned holovids. Voltron's sword manifested, but phased in and out of solidity. The Megazord's weapons systems charged erratically, power spiking and dropping in dangerous patterns. The super leech noticed the instability and attacked with everything it had. Tentacles lashed out by the dozens, wrapping around both unstable forms. Energy drain activated across every point of contact, pulling power from systems already stressed to breaking. We have to connect, Shiro shouted over alarms. Billy, Pidge, initiate the linking sequence. The systems aren't ready, Pidge protested, even as her hands moved to comply. This could cause cascade failure in both forms. Do it anyway. Pidge and Billy activated the linking protocols simultaneously. Energy bridges extended from Voltron toward the Megazord quintessence, reaching across space in streams of concentrated power. From the Megazord, grid energy reached back, morphing fields extending to meet the incoming quintessence. The energies touched. For one terrible second, nothing happened. Then reality hiccuped. The incompatible energies didn't mix, they collided. Quintessence and grid power meeting like matter and antimatter, generating a reaction that physics hadn't predicted and mathematics couldn't model. Both forms screamed metal and energy and were all protesting the impossible union. It's rejecting, Keith gasped, Red Lion systems threatening to tear free of the combination. Hold together. Amelia commanded, the Megazord structure buckling under the strain. We hold or we die. Those are the options. Hunk's voice came through, strained but determined. The energies, they're not supposed to mix. They're supposed to interfere. Remember, noise-canceling effect. We just need to... He didn't finish, just adjusted Yellow Lion's quintessence output, changing the frequency, the harmonic resonance. And suddenly, impossibly, it worked. The energies stopped fighting. Instead of trying to mix, they began to weave quintessence and grid power, maintaining separate but adjacent channels flowing together without combining. Like two rivers running parallel, distinct but unified in purpose. The instability vanished. Voltron and Megazord stood solid once more, but now connected by bridges of flowing energy, not merged into a single entity that was still beyond possibility, but linked, unified, operating as one coordinated system. We did it, Billy breathed. We actually did it. Celebrate later, Zato said. That thing's still trying to eat us. The super leech's tentacles continued their assault, but now they faced something new. Something neither Grid Leech nor Squid Ink. Incorporated programming had encountered before. A hybrid war machine powered by two universes. Voltron's sword solidified now, channeling both quintessence and grid energy through its length. The blade blazed with colors that shouldn't exist, edge sharp enough to cut dimensions. The Megazord's weapons charged power flowing from both sources, rigid energy enhanced by quintessence backing, creating output levels far beyond normal parameters. Target the tentacles first. Shiro coordinated, speaking for both combined forms. Cut its reach limit, its ability to drain us. The linked giants moved as one sword and energy weapons working in concert. Tentacles fell by the dozens, severed cleanly, unable to regenerate fast enough under the hybrid assault. The super leech recoiled, pulling back toward the dimensional scar, seeking the power source that had sustained it. Don't let it retreat, Amelia commanded. If it gets back through the breach, it'll just come back stronger, Keith finished. We end this now. Voltron surged forward, sword raised, while the Megazord flanked wide weapons tracking. They moved with the synchronized precision of 8 pilots operating through 2 separate systems, linked by impossible engineering and desperate necessity. The super leech lashed out with everything it had left, tentacles abandoning defense for pure offense. Some struck home, wrapping around the hybrid forms, draining power. But now the drain flowed both ways. The energy bridges between Voltron and Megazord acted as conduits, channeling stolen power from one form to the other, redistributing the drain, preventing either from being overwhelmed. It was brilliant, adaptive, exactly the kind of emergent property that Billy and Pidge had hoped for, but couldn't predict. It's working, Pidge announced. The hybrid system is self-balancing. As long as we stay linked, it can't drain either form completely. Then we finish this, Shiro said. Voltron's sword descended. The Megazord's weapons fired at maximum output. Both strikes hit simultaneously, coordinated to the microsecond, channeling the full power of 2 universes into a single point. The super leech's crystalline armor shattered. Its core, the nexus where dozens of grid leeches had been merged into one abomination, ruptured under the assault. Energy exploded outward, stolen quintessence, and grid power released in a cascade that lit up the sector like a newborn star. The creature convulsed, once, twice, then began to dissolve. Segments breaking apart, tentacles disintegrating, the entire massive form coming undone, like a dream in the waking light. In seconds it was gone. Nothing remained except fading sparkles of energy and the damaged dimensional scar, now blessedly empty of emerging threats. Silence fell across both combined forms. Then Lance started laughing, slightly manic edge to it. We killed it. We actually killed it. Don't sound so surprised, Keith said, though his own voice carried equal parts relief and disbelief. The scar's still expanding, Billy reminded them, ever the scientist even in victory's aftermath. We've eliminated the immediate threat, but the core mission remains unchanged. Shiro brought Voltron around to face the dimensional tear. Beside the giant robot, the Megazord mirrored the movement both forms, still linked by bridges of flowing energy. Then let's finish this, Shiro said. Everyone ready? Confirmations came back from all 8 pilots. Initiating sealing sequence, Pidge announced, fingers flying across her interface. Channeling maximum quintessence through Voltron systems. Grid energy at maximum output, Billy confirmed, routing through Megazord's morphing field generators. The 2 energies flowed separate but coordinated channeling through the linked forms toward a single destination, the dimensional scar itself. Where the super leech had drained power from the breach, Voltron and Megazord now injected it. Quintessence and grid energy, incompatible energies, forced to flow together, creating the harmonic interference that Billy and Pidge had theorized. The dimensional scar began to shrink, not smoothly. Reality didn't heal easily, didn't want to give up the connection it had been forced to make. The scar fought back, pulsing, trying to expand again, dimensions struggling against the forced closure. Increase output, Amelia commanded, feeling the Megazord strain under the power levels. Pour everything into it. Quintessence reserves dropped toward critical. Grid energy stores depleted rapidly. Warning lights flashed across 16 cockpits as systems protested the sustained maximum output. But the scar continued to shrink. Bands of energy that had spread light years compressed back toward their origin point. The tear that had threatened to collapse dimensional barriers across entire sectors drew inward, forced closed by energies that canceled rather than reinforced. It's working, Hunk shouted. Reality's stabilizing dimensional barriers are reconnecting. The scar pulsed once more, a final surge of resistance. Then, with a sound like the universe sighing in relief, it sealed. One moment a tear through the fabric of existence. The next, empty space, as if the breach had never existed. Silence. Did we? Fern started. Sensors confirm, Pidge said quietly. The dimensional scar is gone, barriers fully restored. No residual instability detected. They'd done it. Against impossible odds, facing threats from 2 dimensions, Rangers and Paladins working together had sealed a tear in reality itself. Power reserves critical. Corin's voice crackled through professional composure, cracking slightly. I recommend immediate return to the castle for system restoration and probably a very stiff drink. Seconded, Lance said. I vote we never do that again. Thirded, multiple voices echoed. The energy bridges between Voltron and Megazord began to dissolve, the temporary connection unsustainable now that the immediate crisis had passed. Both forms separated, flickering back into their component lions and Zords. 9 individual ships hung in space, battered, depleted, but triumphant. The castle's hangar had never held a victory celebration quite like this. Rangers and Paladins filled the space, some still in armor, others having demorphed, all riding the adrenaline high of surviving the impossible. Corin had broken out the food goo, which the Rangers eyed with deep suspicion, and various other supplies. To the worst plan that actually worked, Lance proposed, raising a pouch of something vaguely nutritious. To brilliant engineering under impossible deadlines. Pidge countered, gesturing, and Billy, who nodded acknowledgement. To not dying, Hunk added, which got universal agreement. Shiro stood slightly apart, watching his team interact with the Rangers. The barriers of suspicion and unknown had fallen away, replaced by the camaraderie of people who'd fought together and survived. Keith and Javi were comparing piloting techniques. Fern was teaching Lance some ranger combat maneuvers that he was absolutely going to hurt himself trying. Pidge and Billy had disappeared into a corner with tablets already designing improvements to the hybrid system, just in case. Amelia approached helmet-retracted expression, carrying satisfaction and lingering concern in equal measure. Your team is impressive. That combination, I've never seen anything like it. Neither had we, Shiro admitted. But we've learned to improvise. Seems like you have too. It's that or die. She paused. Thank you for pulling Zaito from space, for helping seal the breach. We couldn't have done this without you. Works both ways. That hybrid system was brilliant and terrifying. The best plans usually are. Zaito joined them demorphed, looking more relaxed than Shiro had seen him. The dimensional barriers are stable. Billy's running long-term scans, but initial readings suggest no permanent damage to either reality. Which means you can go home, Shiro said. Something flickered across Zaito's expression, Lee, but also something that might have been regret. We should. The longer we stay in your dimension, the more questions it raises about dimensional stability. But, Shiro prompted, reading the unspoken continuation. But Ollie's still out there, still corrupted. And whatever's controlling him just threw everything it had at preventing us from sealing that breach. Zato's jaw tightened. It failed, but I don't think it's done. This feels like the opening move in a larger game. Amelia nodded. Agreed. Billy's already working on dimensional communication protocols. If something happens on our side that affects yours or vice versa, we should be able to contact each other, Shiro finished. Share intelligence coordinate responses. Exactly. Pidge materialized from her corner tablet in hand, and manic gleam in her eye. Speaking of which, Billy and I designed a trans-dimensional relay system. It uses residual scar energy to maintain a stabilized connection point. We can send signals between dimensions without tearing new holes in reality. That's incredible, Keith said, having wandered over with Javi. How's it work? The technical explanation that followed lost most of the non-engineers, but the core concept was clear. Two universes that should have remained forever separate now had a phone line. We should test it before you leave, Billy suggested, his own tablet showing complex diagrams. Make sure the signal can penetrate dimensional barriers without degradation. And we need to establish encryption protocols, Pidge added. If we can communicate between dimensions, we have to assume others might try to intercept. Always the paranoid one, Lance teased. Always the one who keeps us from getting hacked, Pidge shot back. The celebration continued, but gradually wound down as exhaustion caught up with adrenaline. Rangers and paladins exchanged contact protocols, personal farewells, promises to stay in touch across impossible distances. Finally, it was time. The ranger ships powered up in the castle's hangar energy signatures, stabilizing as systems recharged. The dimensional relay Billy and Pidge had constructed sat mounted on the castle's hull, ready to maintain the connection once the rangers departed. Safe travels, Shiro said, offering his hand to Amelia. She clasped it firmly. Fight well, Defender. If you ever need help, we'll call, he promised. Same goes for you. Zaito nodded to each paladin in turn, lingering slightly when he reached Shiro. Thank you for reminding me that being the last of something doesn't mean being alone. You're not alone, Shiro confirmed. None of us are. Not anymore. The Rangers boarded their ship systems coming online with familiar hums. Billy's voice came through the comm one last time. Initiating dimensional transit in 30 seconds. The relay's active. You should be able to reach us within minutes of transmission. We'll be listening, Pidge confirmed. The countdown began. 10 seconds. 5, 1. The Ranger ships activated their dimensional drives, technology reverse-engineered from the very scar they'd just sealed, and reality opened before them. Not a tear this time, but a controlled gateway carefully measured, designed to close cleanly behind them. The 4 ships moved forward, passing through the shimmering barrier between dimensions, and were gone. The gateway collapsed, leaving no trace except the relay device pulsing with faint light, maintaining its impossible connection. The paladins stood in the hangar, watching empty space where the Rangers had been. "Think we'll see them again?" Lance asked. "Yeah," Keith said with certainty. "Something tells me this isn't over." Shiro had the same feeling. Whatever had corrupted Ollie, whatever plan had required throwing Zato across dimensions and nearly tearing reality apart, it was still in motion. They'd won a battle, sealed a breach, forged an alliance. But the war was just beginning. "Come on," he said finally. "Let's get the castle back to the Coalition. We have a lot to report." The paladins filed out exhaustion, finally claiming them, leaving the hangar empty except for the 5 lines and the quietly pulsing dimensional relay. In the silence, the relay transmitted a brief signal testing the connection across impossible distances. And in another dimension, in a command center, still recovering from their own battles, Billy received the signal clearly. 2 universes permanently connected now, for better or worse. Far away, across dimensional barriers that had been breached and sealed, in a reality that touched this one at angles that hurt to perceive something watched through instruments that shouldn't exist. It had observed the entire battle, seen the Lions and Rangers work together, witnessed the hybrid combination that had destroyed its super leech and sealed the dimensional scar. Data flowed into processes that were almost thought analyzed by an intelligence that was almost alive. The dimensional relay device, it was a weakness, an opening, a path. Plans adjusted, timelines recalculated, new strategies formed. The first attempt had failed, but it had provided valuable intelligence. Now it knew what it faced, knew how they fought, knew how they worked together. And most importantly, it knew they could be reached. The dimensional relay pulsed, maintaining its connection between universes. And something began planning how to use that connection for its own purposes. The bridge between dimensions had been meant as a lifeline. It would become a highway for invasion. But not yet. Not until preparations were complete. Patience, strategy, overwhelming force applied at exactly the right moment. The Rangers and Paladins had won this battle. The war, however, belonged to whoever struck next. And something vast and terrible was very patient indeed. The castle of Lions drifted through space at sublight speeds, running silent while systems regenerated. 3 hours had passed since the Rangers' departure, 3 hours of diagnostic scans, damage reports, and the kind of exhausted quiet that followed battles won at terrible cost. Shiro found Keith on the observation deck, staring out at the stars, with the distant expression of someone processing more than they wanted to admit. "You okay?" Shiro asked, joining him at the viewport. Keith didn't turn. "Thinking about what Zato said, about being the last of something. The Morphin Masters." "Yeah." Keith's reflection in the viewport showed tension in his jaw. "We know what that's like. Last Alteens, last of Earth's defenders before we found the Lions. Last hope for the Coalition more times than I can count." He paused. "Being the last of something, it's heavy." Shiro's prosthetic hand clenched reflexively, memory of his own isolation still raw, despite time and healing. It is. But Zaito's not alone anymore. Neither are we. Because we've got interdimensional allies now. Keith's tone carried skepticism wrapped in hope. A relay that might work, might not maintained by technology we barely understand. Because we proved that walls between universes aren't as solid as they seem. And because when things get bad enough, Shiro gestured at the viewport, indicating the vast emptiness where rangers had fought beside them. People find ways to help each other. Keith managed a slight smile. You always do this. Find the optimistic angle. Someone has to. You're the one who keeps us grounded in tactical reality. Fair. They stood together in comfortable silence. Two leaders who'd learned to trust each other through fire and loss and impossible victories. The relay's still transmitting, Keith said finally. Pidge checks it every 20 minutes like it's going to disappear. She's excited. First contact with another dimension that didn't involve immediate combat that's practically a vacation for us. We fought a super leech. I said practically. Keith's laugh was brief but genuine. The sound of it made something in Shiro's chest ease fractionally. The observation deck door slid open. Pidge entered, tablet in hand, as always, followed by Hunk carrying a tray of something that might generously be called food. Intervention time, Hunk announced. You two have been brooding for hours. That's Keith's maximum daily allowance and twice Shiro's recommended limit. I don't brood, Shiro protested. You absolutely brood, Pidge said, already pulling up schematics on her tablet. But I'm here with actual news, so brooding postponed. Billy just sent a message through the relay. Both Keith and Shiro straightened. What did he say? Short version. They made it home safely, their dimensions stable, no residual damage from the scar. Also, he included 17 pages of technical notes on improving the relay system, which I'm obviously going to implement. She grinned. I like him. He thinks like an engineer. High praise, Hunk said, offering the tray. Also sustenance. You both need to eat something that isn't determination and coffee. Shiro accepted a food pouch exhaustion, finally catching up now that the mission was truly complete. Any word on the situation with Ollie, the corruption? Pidge's expression darkened. Billy didn't include details, but he mentioned they're still investigating. Whatever took control of Ollie is still out there, still active. The Gateway incident was just one piece of something larger. Which means this isn't over, Keith said, voicing what they were all thinking. It's never over, Hunk replied philosophically. We win one fight, there's always another. But at least now we've got friends we can call if things get dimensional again. Lance appeared in the doorway, looking refreshed from actual sleep, a rarity after combat. Are we having a team meeting without me? I'm hurt, devastated even. We're having a making sure our leaders eat something intervention, Hunk explained. You want in? Always. Lance grabbed a food pouch and joined them at the viewport. So, Interdimensional Alliance secured breach, sealed, monster destroyed. I'd say that's a successful mission. Except for the part where we're probably on someone's radar now, Pidge said. Whatever sent that super leech knows about us, knows we worked with the Rangers. That makes us connected to their conflict. Shiro had considered that angle extensively over the last 3 hours. Then we stay alert. Monitor the relay, maintain contact with the Rangers, and prepare for the possibility that dimensional barriers aren't the protection we thought they were. Cheerful, Lance muttered. Realistic, Keith corrected. Can't it be both? The door opened again. Corin entered, mustache somehow still perfectly groomed despite the chaos of recent hours. Ah, there you all are. I've been running final diagnostics on the castle's systems. Good news, we're at 67% operational capacity. Less good news, we've depleted enough quintessence that we'll need to find a Balmera for proper recharge within the week. Add it to the list, Shiro said. After we report back to the Coalition. Corin's expression shifted to something more serious. About that, I've been monitoring Coalition channels. There's significant chatter about unusual energy signatures detected in this sector. Several Allied ships reported instrument malfunctions consistent with dimensional instability. The scars after effects, Pidge said immediately. Even though we sealed it, the surrounding space probably retained some residual distortion. It'll fade with time, but for now, it's making people nervous, Shiro finished. We'll need to brief the coalition, explain what happened, without causing panic about dimensional breaches. Hey everyone, don't worry about the tear in reality we just sealed. Yes, there are other dimensions. No, they're not all hostile. Well, mostly not hostile. Okay, some of them tried to eat us, but we handled it. Lance's delivery was perfect deadpan. That'll go great. Despite everything, Shiro smiled. We'll workshop the phrasing. The team stood together at the viewport, unlike people who'd become family through impossible circumstances, now connected to allies in another reality entirely. The universe felt simultaneously larger and more manageable. More threats, yes, but more friends to face them with. The relay's transmitting again? Pidge said, checking her tablet. Looks like Billy's sending another message. He's really chatty for a scientist. What's it say? Pidge's eyes scanned the text expressions, shifting from curiosity to concern. It's a warning. They've detected unusual activity around their sealed gateway residual energy signatures that don't match normal grid patterns. Billy thinks something might be trying to reopen the breach from their side. The moment of peace shattered. Keith was already moving. How long until we can reach their dimensional coordinates? We can't, Pidge said. Not without tearing another hole in reality, which defeats the purpose. But the relay works both ways. We can send technical assistance coordinate monitoring protocols. Shiro's command instincts kicked in. Contact Billy. Tell him we're standing by with whatever support we can provide through the relay. Pidge. I want continuous monitoring of dimensional barriers on our side. If something's trying to break through from their reality, we'll see it coming, she confirmed. I'm setting up automated alerts. Anything that looks like gateway energy, we'll know immediately. Hunk set down his tray, playfulness evaporating into focused readiness. Should we prep the lions if we need to respond fast? Good idea. Standard ready protocols, but keep power consumption minimal. We're still low on quintessence. Shiro's mind was already running through contingencies. Tactical responses, worst-case scenarios. The observation deck had transformed from peaceful refuge to impromptu war room in seconds. Years of crisis response made the transition automatic. Lance pulled up a star chart marking their position relative to the sealed scar's last known coordinates. If something does break through from the Ranger's side, we're 3 hours away at maximum speed. That's assuming the castle doesn't fall apart from running on fumes. It won't fall apart, Corrin said with affronted dignity. She's Altian engineering. She'll hold together through sheer force of superior craftsmanship. And duct tape, Pidge added. So much duct tape. The metaphorical kind, mostly. Keith studied the star chart with tactical focus. 3 hours is too long if something hostile comes through. We need early warning, faster response time. Already working on it, Pidge said, fingers flying across her tablet. If I can calibrate the castle's sensors to detect dimensional distortions at greater range, we might get 5 or 6 hours notice instead of 3. Might? Science is an iterative process, Keith. I'll know more after I run simulations. Shiro made the decision. All right. Pidge, you've got priority access to whatever systems you need for the early warning network. Hunk, work with Corrin on maximizing our speed capacity with current power levels. Lance, Keith, help me draft the coalition report. We need to brief them without causing sector-wide panic. Everyone moved to their tasks, with the practiced efficiency of a team that had saved the universe more times than they could count. But Shiro couldn't shake the feeling that they'd traded one crisis for another. The dimensional scar was sealed, yes. The immediate threat eliminated. But in solving one problem, they'd created new vulnerabilities. The relay connected 2 universes. A bridge for communication, cooperation, mutual aid. But bridges worked both ways. And something somewhere was learning to cross them.
Yeah.
In the Ranger Command Center, Billy studied the same concerns from the opposite side of dimensional barriers. The sealed gateway location showed residual energy patterns that shouldn't exist. Not grid power, something else. Something foreign testing the boundaries they just reinforced. Amelia stood beside him, morphed, but visor retracted, watching the displays with the focused intensity that had made her a leader. How bad is it? Unknown, Billy admitted. The energy signatures are consistent with probe activity. Something checking the seal's integrity, looking for weaknesses. But the source... He pulled up deeper analysis. It's not from our dimension or the Voltron universe. It's coming from somewhere else entirely. A third dimension, at least. Possibly more. Billy's hands moved across holographic controls, pulling data from sensors distributed around the gateway site. The cosmic gateway's activation might have created resonance across multiple dimensional barriers. We sealed the breach with Voltron's help, but the ripples are still spreading. Javi entered the command center, helmet retracted, carrying datapads loaded with field reports. Perimeter sensors are clear, no immediate threats. But I'm reading the same weird energy signatures Billy flagged. They're getting stronger, Billy confirmed. Whatever's testing the seal, it's learning, adapting. I've sent warnings to Voltron through the relay, but we're on our own if something breaks through before they can respond. Amelia finished. Ijeon and Fern joined them both, looking fresher than they had any right to after the recent battle. Ranger healing accelerated recovery, but there were limits. So what's the plan? Fern asked, direct as always. We can't leave a potentially unstable dimensional seal unguarded. Agreed. Amelia's command presence filled the room. We establish rotating watch on the gateway site. Full sensor coverage, rapid response teams ready to deploy. If anything tries to come through, we seal it again, Zaito said, entering the command center. He'd been debriefing with Solon and Mick, catching them up on everything that had happened in the Voltron dimension. The technique worked once. With Billy's refinements to the energy harmonics, we should be able to repeat the process. Assuming we have warning, Javi said. And assuming whatever's testing the seal doesn't learn how to bypass our defenses. That's a lot of assuming, Fern muttered. Billy pulled up a new display, the dimensional relay interface showing active connection to the Voltron universe. We're not alone in this. Pidge is setting up coordinated monitoring on their side. If we pool our sensor data, create a unified early warning network, we double our detection range, Amelia said, catching the logic. 2 dimensions watching for threats, sharing intelligence in real time. Exactly. And if the Voltron team developed their hybrid combination technique, further refined it for rapid deployment? Billy's eyes lit up with the kind of scientific enthusiasm that usually preceded either brilliance or explosions. We could coordinate dimensional defense across realities. Ayan crossed his arms. You're talking about a permanent alliance. Not just call if you need help, but integrated defensive protocols spanning universes. I'm talking about survival, Billy corrected. Whatever opened that first gateway, whatever corrupted Ollie and threw Zato across dimensions, it's still out there, still planning, and now it knows we can work with allies from other realities. Zato's expression darkened, which makes us twice as dangerous to its plans, and twice as important to eliminate. Silence fell across the command center, weight of implications settling on shoulders already bearing too much. Amelia broke it with typical decisiveness. Then we prepare. Billy, continue coordinating with Pidge. I want that early warning network operational within 24 hours. Javi, work with Solon on rapid response protocols. Ayon, Fern, you're on rotation for gateway monitoring. Zaito. I know, he said quietly. I need to figure out what Ollie's planning. Or what's planning through him. We'll support you however we can, Amelia promised. But yes, the corruption, the gateway, the dimensional breach, they're all connected. Find the connection, we find our next move. The team dispersed to their tasks, professional and focused despite exhaustion. But Billy lingered at the relay interface, watching data stream between dimensions, thinking about bridges and barriers and the dangerous space between protection and isolation. The relay pulsed with incoming transmission. Text from Pidge technical specifications for enhanced monitoring protocols wrapped in her characteristic precision and dry humor. He smiled despite everything. It was good to have peers who understood, even across impossible distances. The transmission included a final line, informal addendum to the technical data. "Stay safe over there. We've got your back even from another dimension." P. Billy typed a response. "Same here. Let's make sure these bridges we built don't become highways for invasion." B. He sent the message, watched it translate through the relay's exotic encoding crossing barriers that should have been absolute, and wondered if they'd made the right choice connecting their universes, or if they'd just given their enemies exactly what they wanted. Far from both dimensions and spaces between realities, where physics forgot its rules, and causality became negotiable, something observed. It had watched the battle, seen the hybrid combination, witnessed the sealing of the dimensional scar, and learned. The relay was elegant, a maintained connection requiring minimal power designed for communication rather than transit. But any connection could be exploited. Any bridge could become an invasion route with proper leverage. Patience, planning, precise application of force at vulnerable points. The Rangers and Paladins had created their early warning network, established defensive protocols, prepared for threats they could imagine. But they were defending against the wrong kind of attack. Not invasion, not direct assault. Infiltration. The relay transmitted constantly data flowing between dimension streams of information considered safe because they contained no physical mass. But information could be weaponized. Code could be corrupted. And something very old, very patient, and very good at hiding inside data streams had just been given a perfect vector. The first probe was subtle. A single packet of code hidden in the technical specifications Billy and Pidge exchanged. Too small to trigger alarms, too simple to appear threatening. It crossed dimensional barriers without resistance, arriving in systems on both sides simultaneously, and waited. Not active, not aggressive, just present observing learning system architectures and security protocols. Building a map for future exploitation. The Rangers and Paladins had built a bridge to enable cooperation. They had unknowingly created an infection vector. And the corruption that had taken Ollie, the intelligence that had orchestrated dimensional warfare, smiled in ways that didn't require a face. Phase 1 complete, established connection. Phase 2, initiating infiltrate systems. Phase 3 awaited optimal timing, compromised defenses. Phase 4 would be trivial after that invasion. The relay pulsed innocent and helpful, maintaining its connection between universes. Neither the Rangers nor the Paladins noticed the passenger their own data carried. Not yet, but they would. Eventually, when it was far too late to stop what had already begun. Pidge sat in Green Lion's cockpit, reviewing the enhanced monitoring protocols one final time before implementation. Everything looked solid: automated alerts, coordinated sensor sweeps with the Rangers' systems, fail-safes upon fail-safes. Her tablet chimed with incoming relay transmission. Billy's confirmation that their side was implementing matching protocols. She smiled, typing a quick acknowledgement, and uploaded the final code package to the castle's mainframe. The upload completed without incident. All systems green. Perfect. She didn't notice the extra 3 kilobytes of code that came with Billy's transmission. Why would she? It matched expected file sizes, passed all security checks, integrated seamlessly with the monitoring protocols. Hidden in plain sight. Waiting, learning, growing. In the Ranger Command Center, Billy experienced the same moment. Upload complete, systems operational, everything nominal. The extra code that had arrived with Pidge's transmission settled into their mainframe like it belonged there, because it had been designed to belong. Crafted by an intelligence that had studied both systems during the battle, learned their architectures, understood their security philosophies, and exploited the one vulnerability neither dimension had considered: trust. The Rangers and Paladins trusted each other. Trusted the relay. Trusted that data flowing between dimensions came from allies and only allies. That trust was about to become their greatest weakness. But not today. Not this week. The corruption was patient. It could wait for the perfect moment. For now, it simply watched. Learned. Spread quietly through systems on both sides of dimensional barriers, preparing for the day when watching would end, and true invasion would begin. The Castle of Lions continued its journey through space systems, regenerating crew, recovering early warning network going online without incident. In another dimension, the Rangers maintained their vigil over the sealed gateway, confident in their defenses and their newfound allies. Both teams had won a great victory. Both felt the satisfaction of crisis averted, alliance forged, universe saved once again. Neither knew that the war they thought they'd prevented was actually just beginning, that the enemy they'd defeated was merely a distraction, that the real threat had already infiltrated their systems, patient and invisible, waiting for the moment to strike. The relay pulsed between dimensions, a bridge built with good intentions, a highway being prepared for terrible purposes. And in the spaces between realities, something ancient and malevolent continued its slow, careful, inevitable approach. The Rangers and Paladins had proven they could work together. Soon they would prove whether they could survive together when the corruption came for them both. At the same time, from inside their own systems, where trust lived and vulnerabilities hid, the countdown had begun. Neither dimension knew it yet, but they would learn. In blood and fire and desperate last stands, they would learn what it meant to be connected, for better and for worse. Darkness, then a single point of light pulsing in rhythm with corruption that had no name. A voice distorted and layered, speaking to itself in empty space. The bridge is built. The infection spreads. Soon both dimensions will know true unity. Pause. Under my control. A sound that might have been laughter, if laughter could carry the weight of dying stars. Let them prepare. Let them build defenses. Let them trust each other. The light pulsed brighter, corruption spreading through invisible networks. It only makes the harvest sweeter when I come for them both. At once, the light faded. Darkness returned. But the corruption remained, growing, waiting, planning.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to turn on notification so you won't miss our future videos. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.